American Graduate Community Town Halls are part of American Graduate Let's Make It Happen, a public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Hello and welcome to another program in our American Graduate Series. In a previous town hall discussion, we heard from teachers to get their thoughts about how to keep kids in school through graduation. Today we hear from a cross-section of our community: parents, students, teachers, business people, school officials, and community service organizations. We started our conversation with this question: what do we want schools to do?
The best would be providing every possible program that is going to help them achieve their best and be successful in school and, of course, later in life.
To provide data-driven instruction that our students can realize their full capacity for learning.
And you are a student, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I want high-quality teachers, devoted teachers, and I want more bottom-up initiatives instead of top-down initiatives. So
explain what you mean by that, bottom-up.
Well, I want more autonomy to be given to the teachers, to the principals, because they know what's best. They know what's going on in their schools, and that way they can make the school run better, and in turn the district will run better. So. Okay.
Sounds like you have something specific in mind. What from the top don't you like?
Well, Registers kind of, Dr. Jesse Registers, who's the director of our schools, has kind of already done that in a way, and I've liked the way it's turned out. And now it's going to be where I think in the next couple of years that they're going to have money the principals can use in their hands, and they can help maybe more ELL programs to be funded and stuff like that, and which is much needed, and that'll help graduation rates. So.
Okay.
Along with everything that has to do with curriculum and well-qualified teachers that turn out students that are ready for the world, I would like the schools not to forget that children have social and emotional needs, and if they're not met, they're not going to be successful in school, and that starts with our very youngest children. Research proves that children that start behind stay behind, and parents know what their children need, and the classroom teachers know what children need, and the administration across the board needs to listen to families and to children and to teachers especially in deciding what is the best to do. Too often I think they get a good idea, but they don't play it out, and well, that didn't work quickly enough, so we're going to switch to something else. I think there needs to be more thought put into what we do.
I think communication would be a very good idea. I mean that on the end of letting the children be able to voice their opinions and the adults trying their best to understand where the kids are coming from, as well as giving the kids enough opportunity to voice their opinions, because some children get a little afraid when they're actually having the chance to say what is on their mind.
I don't want my child to be just a data point. I want them to have the opportunity to reach their full potential. And while data is important, I don't feel it should be the driver of either of my child's education. I want them to be surrounded by good teachers, quality administrators, and have both of those groups supported by central office. And just because my daughter, who has disabilities, may not go to college does not mean that she will not be a valuable member of society and a contributor to society, just as my younger daughter, who probably will go to college, will be equally as important to society. But one's data is going to be completely different than the other's data, but they're both worth.
How do you think data should be used?
I think data or any kind of state assessment or anything like that can be used as a good tool to figure out where the weaknesses are, what we can work on, and help the child grow on what they need to grow on. But to use it as a means to evaluate teachers, to evaluate maybe what my daughter is or is not capable of, I think is inappropriate.
Okay.
I would just say respect for the learning process, because learning is a process. No matter whether you have data, teachers, children, those things are all there, but you have to be able to integrate them. And you need the teachers to support the children, the data to support the children and the teachers, but you can't take away one thing and just totally emphasize that. Okay. You have to have time for everything to have an opportunity to work together.
Yes.
Sort of talking in perspective of a parent as well as a business partner from NES. As a parent, I want to see the kids really well prepared for higher education, for college and the graduate level and so forth. But also from a business partner, to to prepare our kids to be the best employees. And NES, for example, we have about 1,000 employees. Over the next 5 years, a large number are going to reach the retirement age. So what better way than to recruit through our own existing system, our public school system, to find those eligible students who can fill those voids and vacancies. The sky's the limit for the kids to fill those positions. So looking forward to the next 5-10 years, we're going to have to continue recruiting, especially with positions that are trade-related. Some positions you may not need a 4-year degree. You may just need a 2-year degree, but there's a sort of apprenticeship program through these academies that we can prepare the kids not just for the 2-year degree path, but also in engineering. We have about 7 or 8 engineering academies. What we've seen through these academies are kids being inspired to pursue engineering, for example, and that just fills our hearts with joy to see that now kids are going to take that path. And eventually they're going to come back and maybe they'll apply to a place like NES and stay in town. And once you work in the place, the city that prepared you educationally, you'll find a niche to give back to your schools. Like myself, I've been working 19 years at NES, graduated from Hillsborough, but I'm involved with the academies of Nashville, and it's been the best niche to be able to find an avenue to give back to your schools in every level, professionally, and help inspire kids.
Thank you very much. And you brought up an important term that I think a lot of people may understand, but some don't. The academies, the learning centers that Metro Nashville Public Schools calls the academies, which is one of the options for high school students. And there are a number of choices that schools are offered here in Metro Nashville. And we have a report that we want to share with you now that talks a little bit about some of the choices that you can find in local schools.
I want the best education for my daughter, and I believe there is probably a school for whatever you're looking for.
Parents now have more than 80 options to choose from in Metro Nashville Public Schools, ranging from traditional magnet schools to career academies, charter schools, and more. It's one result of the federal No Child Left Behind law that says parents whose children attend failing schools can choose to transfer to another school within the district.
Most parents are not exercising that choice. Only a very small number, maybe 2%, 2 to 3% at most, are exercising that freedom to choose, that ability to transfer out of a failing school. So the researchers are asking why, and policymakers are curious.
Dr. Claire Smirker studies and writes about school choice at Vanderbilt Peabody College. Her findings show parents often rank convenience and familiarity over optional schools, especially if the choice is complicated by transportation challenges or other uncertainties.
We know that neighborhoods matter, and when you locate schools in high crime or high poverty areas, they tend to be less attractive to all parents. So location, location, location is important. Then think about what parents are interested in. What are their priorities? What kinds of themes do parents prefer? And what are the assets of the city? So the new leaders, I think, in Nashville have thought strategically about this, and they've thought, well, music is obviously an asset, healthcare. We have a great museum, a Frist Museum. We have good Montessori traditions in Nashville. So the idea is to match city assets, urban assets and attractions to parents' preferences. And if you do that and then you market these schools strategically to all parents and you get information out to all parents, increasingly to parents who would otherwise opt for private schools, bring those parents back into a public school system with the option of attending a high quality school that offers the kinds of attractive features that they're going to embrace.
Any of you students want to talk about your experience with the Academy?
I'm Cordell Young. I'm the senior class president of Glencliff High School, and I'm in the Academy of Medical Science and Research. And my experience with academies is great in that it helps me specialize, what I need to get to learn in order to go to college, and it gives me a jump, gives me a head start on things. So okay. I mean, I feel it's a pretty good idea so far. I didn't go to Glencliff for the academies. I went to Glencliff and was introduced to the academies, and that's what the freshman academy is. where you first get in and then they introduce, hey, this is academies, this is what you can choose. You can choose this, whatever you want to be when you grow up. And so from freshman academy, once you start sophomore year, you get to pick an academy and you go to the pathway. And so.
Okay. How many of you students are in a school, you've chosen a school other than your neighborhood school? Raise your hand. Okay. Tell us how you made that choice.
My zone school is Glencliff High School, but my parents decided to send me to MLK Magnet High School, which I was sent to in the 7th grade. My parents chose that school because they wanted the best education possible for me in the Metro public system, and we thought that MLK was the best choice that I had. And I haven't regretted that choice. It is a school that honestly prepares you for any past secondary schooling. And I think that I do have an advantage going to that school because I feel like in your zone schools, you're taught what's expected to be taught, what's like the mandatory things to be taught. But at magnet schools, teachers actually do care, and teachers are expected to teach you beyond what the requirements are that the district has laid out for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any of our parents make a choice about a school other than your child's neighborhood school you want to tell us about? Yes.
Actually, both of my children are in their non-neighborhood schools. My oldest daughter, who's sitting beside me, is at Hume Fogg, and my youngest daughter is at Jones Padea. And the primary thing that I considered was, what is their fit? What is their niche? Where are they going to best be successful? And I focused on their success, not my own personal bragging rights.
Okay, thank you. You heard that there are more than 80 choices in Metro Nashville schools. How do you feel about having that many choices of schools to choose from in the school district?
I think having choices is wonderful. My question is, how do parents know about all of these choices? What kind of marketing has there been? And how do parents make up their minds? We have a lot of immigrant parents in town, people living in poverty who may not know more than what their neighborhood school is. And I question whether the school system has really marketed these ideas and these choices to parents everywhere with information that's really understandable and accessible.
I see a lot of heads nodding. Do you feel that you have a good understanding of the choices in Metro schools? Raise your hand if you feel that you have a good understanding of all those choices. Okay. Not very many hands. Is there someone with the school system here that wants to explain how you disseminate information?
Well, I think parents just want to know that their students are going to be loved, challenged, and successful in schools. And that's kind of how parents make choices. And so figuring out how to get information to parents about where that's going to happen and how that's happening, and then capitalizing on what they know about their children is a challenge. But we've tried increasingly to put all of those choices into a single application process. I think that helps. We've sent information to and through all of the schools and community outlets. But at the end of the day, there's really no substitute for the people in a school building articulating to visitors and parents and people who might come by what it is that they do well, and how they can challenge and love and support the success of the students who attend the school there. So it takes everybody, and when the system tries to send out a common message, sometimes you can lose the individuality of those schools in that common message.
Okay. I'd like to just ask you quickly, it seems like there's more room for parents to choose outside their neighborhood school, according to what we just heard from Dr. Smirker. Why do you think more parents aren't choosing schools other than their zone school?
Well, we think they are choosing at a fairly high rate, and we think even when you choose your own zone school, you choose it because of some unique reason to be there. And so I think increasingly parents are learning to choose more and to take advantage of those options that are available. But there are barriers that remain. We need a much better universal transportation system to get people to all of the schools that are available for them. We need continuing growth in information and understanding of schools. We need our schools to be communicating with students who are about to leave and go to the next tier what those options are in a more complete way. There's lots of things we can all do to expand parents' access.
So maybe the 2 to 3% we heard was a little bit low for Metro public schools, you think, in terms of choice?
Yes.
You think
It's
there's a
definitely
higher?
much higher in Metro. I think that was a national figure.
Okay. Okay, good. Thanks for clarifying that. Yes.
One of the things to be aware of with Metro Schools, there is a Department of Family and Community Partnerships. The way that everything is split up, you have 12 different clusters. With each cluster, you have a family involvement specialist. Each of the family involvement specialists within the cluster can help you access an understanding to what school choice is. We also have on the website a webinar specifically about school choice. So that's another way to access it via Metro Schools.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I think that we have to meet children where they are in each individual school. And I do believe that the school choice options are important because children do have special needs all across the board. And oftentimes you discover them in your zone school or through a parent who has an issue with a specific child. And there is a lot of networking that goes on between parents, teachers, and the school system. So oftentimes that can be discovered. But that isn't a substitute for making sure all of our schools are good. Zone schools should be a choice. And we need to learn how to meet children where they are instead of making specialized schools all over the place that are great, but only help those specific students that are able to get into that school.
You raise a good point, and I think it might be good to get a little background about why choice became so common. And maybe I'll turn to you, Mr. Coverstone, because this was a result in part of No Child Left Behind and failing schools, isn't it? That we started seeing so many options for choice. Explain a little bit about why there are so many and what's the motive behind that.
Well, I think definitely that's one factor, but the history and development of Nashville and the differential growth patterns and experience with desegregation all play a role in that as well. And so we've developed different kinds of schools and different choices of schools over time, and we're using that for sure to add to the success rate that we have. But that isn't a substitute. It is just something that's in addition to that. So one of the things that we hope to accomplish is by looking at schools that are able to be successful doing things a little bit differently, we want to ask, well, could all schools do things a little bit differently? Could they, as was mentioned earlier, have a little bit more autonomy at the school level to make decisions that will respond to the families that are there? That is inclusive of zone schools and is a way to help zone schools grab identities that feel less like leftovers and more like the place that you chose to go in the first place. And we really think that choosing in that way, being a part of something at a school, is important to every school.
And what about failing schools and where they fit into all of this?
Well, we can't have any failing schools. I mean, there just can't be any failing schools. Every student is entitled to a great opportunity and the success that comes with being successful at school. Every teacher is entitled to work in a place where they can be successful. Every school leader is entitled to work in a place where they can put together a team that can be successful. And so, failing schools are just not an option. Now, legally, from No Child Left Behind and other sources, some of the new ideas and experiments that have emerged have been given some support, but we really shouldn't confuse that support with the main reason that you do it, which is to build a great school.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to specifically talk to Robin Wall, who is here from McGavock High School, and he has shared the story of his work at McGavock and sort of turning that school around. And it is a neighborhood school. Would you talk a little bit about what it takes to turn around a neighborhood school that has been struggling to succeed?
Time. Time to do a lot of things. I was very fortunate, though, to go to the McGavock High School, where we have so many support groups in our community. We're one of the few communities that has its own Chamber of Commerce, the Donaldson Hermitage Chamber. They're very involved with our schools. We've got groups in the community. They were ready. McGavock had been performing so poorly that our community was ready to make a change. I happened to come in at the right time. There were changes that had to happen with staff. There were changes that had to happen with the way we performed our jobs, I guess you would say, with instruction in the classroom. There was ways that was the best thing about academies. Why is McGavock doing better? It's because of academies. Schools, high schools particularly, zoned high schools, we were losing kids at a record pace. And one of those reasons were because we didn't have a hook to keep our kids in school. There wasn't an interest for a lot of our students. Yes, for the academic students, they're going to be successful, a lot of them, no matter what we offer at school. But for a lot of our kids, academics isn't always the most important thing to them. So we had to find a way to get those kids back in school, to get them involved, and to get them to doing things that they care about. There's the hook with the academies. And that's why it's so important that we offer these different options at our schools. But if you'll notice the academies and the pathways that we have to offer, they relate back to what's available in Nashville. Like at McGavick High School, we all have the Health Science Academy, and that allows us, because of all the numerous hospitals and organizations, medical facilities we have, that's great for that. But we have hospitality and tourism. Well, think about how that fits into Nashville now with the new convention center, the Omni, the Gaylord, those places that some of us are partners with. We have the Academy of Aviation and Transportation. We've got an international airport. We've got John Toon. We've got all those opportunities for our kids in regard to aviation. And then you come back and you say, well, you've got digital design. Well, right here we are, videoing. We have media production. We have audio production. We've got kids that are doing a 45-second film clip in one of the movies from Lucasfilms for Star Wars right now. They're using our kids in a 45-second clip they get to do. So it was about developing something that interested students in your school. And I want to go back to the part about the zone schools need to be the best schools, because that's where our community can get to. Transportation is a big issue, and a big issue for a lot of our families trying to get to where they want to be. And we realize that probably more than anyone else because we talk about it all the time. That's why it's so important for our zone schools to be what they need to be. And I think the academy process, and I think the things that we're bringing into our schools is making that happen. It's just key that we continue. We can't get satisfied. You know, we said 5 years ago how bad McGavick is and how much better we are now. That may be true, but it would be so easy to fall back, to get comfortable with where we've moved to and not continue to grow. And we've got to continue to look and see what our students want, what they need, and meet those needs. And
what's the best way to do that? To know what students want?
You've got to have input from your students. You've got to talk to them. You've got to communicate. I noticed one of the things they said was about communication. I can tell you at McGavick High School, we communicate on a regular basis. My parents, they feel like we're on a first-name basis because I call their houses so often. But I don't want them not knowing what's going on at McGavick High School. I don't want them to miss an opportunity.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about this term failing schools that we hear a lot and what that really means. When we are talking about failing schools, we are talking about standardized test scores. And there are certain student populations that struggle with standardized tests. Children in poverty don't score as well on tests. English learner students don't score as well on tests. Special needs students don't perform as well. Children of involved parents tend to do better on tests. So children who are at our choice schools often have a little bit of an advantage because their parents have the wherewithal to make the choice for them. So when you're talking about failing schools, what you're really talking about is the population that the school is serving. You are not necessarily talking about the quality of instruction or the quality of leadership. And what I want to say is that it's not that the children who are scoring poorly on the test are less capable. It's just that they have more challenges to overcome. So I think the term gets tossed around a lot as if the system is just not making the grade, and that's not true. One of the problems that we've had in Nashville is that we had a 42% increase in poverty over the last 10 years. And those are the children that we're serving. And so there are a lot of unique challenges around that. The way to overcome that is with community support, with an acknowledgement that the children have special needs that we as a school system and we as a community should be meeting.
Okay. Do you want to comment on that?
I teach first and second grade in a public metro school, and our children have their homeroom teacher for approximately 12% of their life in a year. And we can't make every difference in 12% of their lives. And if a child never picks up a pencil at home, or if a child is not from parents that are educated, it's very difficult to catch them up. And when you read a second grade test that's 7 paragraphs long before you get to the first question, makes a teacher wonder, who says this is age appropriate? And I've asked people and they say, well, that's not my department. Well, someone is saying this is age appropriate, and I say exhausted is not a second grade word. And I feel like if we're going to have them graduate, they have to want to be in school, they have to desire and have that inspiration, but we're knocking them down. We're setting the bar so high it's not necessarily achievable, and so we're kind of beating them down when we should be supporting them and making them want to come to school. But when it's so overwhelming, they give up before they go.
What are you referring to specifically? Standardized tests
Standardized
or curricula?
tests, standardized tests, park assessments, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
It's frustrating.
So how do you think you can know where your student is in terms of education?
The teachers know where their students are, absolutely.
Okay.
We do lots of assessments just as the regular thing. We don't need the huge assessments to tell us where we are. We know, and that money could be spent on other things. I have hungry children. I have children that are cold. I have a lot of different issues. We have a lot of dads in jail. There's no role model. Mm-hmm. How can they be something great when they have no one to look to say, I want to be like him. He's cool. I've asked my children, do you have anybody? No, and you can't put it all on the teachers because I didn't create these children. And literally, we get them 12% of their life in a year, and it's just unreasonable to put all of everything on the teacher. Some parents don't feel like they should have to do it at home. Realistically, you have to do it at home. Okay. That's just the way it is.
Yes.
Well, yes. My name is Myra. I work with immigrants and refugees, and especially more with Latinos. What I've seen as an interpreter as well is the parents in Latin America and our countries. I'm not a parent, but I've seen parents saying, well, I'm going to take my kids to school, and the teachers are the ones in charge of everything. So that is the thinking of Latinos sometimes. Mm-hmm. Not everybody, but a lot of immigrants think like that. And the other thing is that if the schools and teachers don't motivate the parents to become part of the system and be part of the kids' life, they don't do it. They said, okay, I'm here to work, to put my kid in the school. They're gonna get a better education than me, but it's their turn, the teachers. So we need to, I think the school, the teachers and the staff and everybody needs to be part of the community, be more integrated, and that is what we're trying to help to do in our community. Teach parents, go outside, do outreach, talk to other agencies, schools, family members, friends, and trying to encourage them, to empower them, to say you can do it, and you have to be part of your kid's life. And the language barrier is very difficult to talk about.
Thank you very much. And you raise a very important topic that we heard quite a bit in some of our discussions before this, and that is what is parent engagement and involvement, how to get parents and the community engaged and involved in education. And we took a look at that in this report.
The smarter I grow, the stronger I grow, the stronger my voice when speaking my mind or making my choice. You gotta read, baby, read.
Say what?
You gotta read, baby, read.
Say what?
You gotta read and go to college. All right.
Is this what it means to have parent engagement at schools? Must parents spend time in their children's school to be involved? Or should schools meet parents and families where they are?
We used to say, why are families not coming to school? That parent-teacher conference was so poorly attended. I wonder why those parents don't care enough to come to that conference. So we'll get into that kind of idea of blaming or different perspectives.
Dr. Kristen Neal is a professor at Vanderbilt's Peabody College who studies teacher-parent relationships. She says there's plenty of research showing that when families engage with schools, students benefit.
Students are likely to have increased student achievement, better social skills, higher graduation rates, much more likely to go on to post-secondary education.
While many agree that parent and community engagement is important, how to achieve it remains a struggle for schools, teachers, and families. Neil says the problem usually is traced to different perceptions about how to engage families with schools.
I can walk into a school building and see within the first 10 minutes if there's this way already for families to be welcomed in. What does that look like? Is, there a desk with a lot of doors and desks before you get to a secretary and a long way before you get to an administrator? Are there open spaces? Are they welcoming? Do you see materials written in several languages if the population of the school has those languages spoken? So you can see that priority even at a local school building, play out even in how that space is used.
And sometimes parents create barriers rooted in their previous experiences in or with schools.
Unsuccessful experiences in engaging with schools before, things such as cultural or language barriers. I don't know really how to engage in the school. So the experiences on both ends sometimes create a barrier.
Neil says schools that successfully overcome those barriers to family engagement start by getting an understanding of the communities they serve.
Communities are different, and so some of the strategies that work with communities are context specific. So in some communities where technology might be readily accessible, moving to FaceTime conferences might be a very natural segue, but for others it may be that there's more groundwork in the communities. So a home visit where we would go into families' homes and communities might be a more viable model. So I think it really goes back to that core question of knowing one's community.
All right, so how do you engage the community and parents to form these partnerships? How can that be done? Yes.
I work for communities and schools at public school in East Nashville. And
Explain Communities in Schools, what that is.
Communities in Schools is a nonprofit organization, and we are in 4 of the East Nashville schools in the Stratford cluster. And we worked with Dr. Neal and actually with a program created out of Vanderbilt called Teachers Involving Parents. And we really focused on what were the challenges, and we too have a large immigrant population. And I think often, and I myself am a first-generation immigrant, I think often our parents come from a place of reverence for the expertise that our teachers hold, and they're just not really sure how they can also offer expertise in that. So our training's focused on leveraging our own capacities so that we aren't consistently asking people to provide that which they cannot. If we're working with families that are non-readers, demanding that they read 30 minutes a night with their student isn't going to happen, and it's going to lead to feelings of shame and guilt and further detachment from the school and further feeling that they can't contribute. And so our training really focused on what is it that parents can bring. If they are non-readers, what are the things that they can be doing at home, or what are the things that the school community could offer to reinforce some of those skill sets that they feel like they come weekly to the table with. So I think this is a great time in the district where schools are really open to focusing on the strengths of the parents and the strengths of the school, and how is it that we can interact in a new way that allows for true parent engagement, where people can really feel confident that they are involved in their children's lives and that their involvement is very meaningful.
So what are the tools to accomplish what she's talking about? And do the parents always have to come to the schools? Or, yes, I'd like to hear from one of the students.
Well, I came from a family that doesn't speak English at all. So, like, I had older siblings. When we talk about parents, we mostly talk about the mother or the dad. I think sometimes we should, like, look at it as your older brother as a figure, because I look up to my older brother rather than my parents, because my parents don't speak the language. So the way that teachers and parents can communicate will be such as every time a student does something good, rather than calling home to say something negative, or the student's too talkative or acting up in school with bad behaviors, you should reward them the same way by telling them that your son doing good in class, he improved his grade, rather than calling home and telling the son did something wrong. And sometimes that makes the parents feel even better. So next time they come to school, they have a better thing to look for rather than come to school with a negative mindset as, oh, what did my son do this day? Oh, man, did he do something bad again?
Thank you for sharing that. And that's exactly what happens when you understand your community. I see a lot of hands over here.
I'm a principal of a zone school.
What school is it, sir?
It's at Cole Elementary.
Cole Elementary.
And we really want our parents there. And I think that's where it starts with me as the principal. I have to really want them there and help them, make them feel welcome. And then we can start training them how to speak English, how to help their children at home, feed, clothe them, all the things that we do. But first the door has to be open, wide open, in order for them to feel comfortable to come in. And when we do that, the expectation rises, and the word on the street is a positive one.
Okay, so you want parents there at the school.
Absolutely.
Is that true at all schools? I mean, do schools and teachers want parents in the classroom all the time? Or do you want to find other ways to engage them? And yes. Okay.
Well, for several years, when I was a librarian at Tusculum Elementary School, we wanted to bring our parents into the school. We had many illiterate parents. And we decided we would open the library early in the morning at 7:30 before school actually opened. We bought materials with special funds, Title I funds. We offered books in sets where we had a book in Spanish and or English, and we had CDs. We decided parents would have the opportunity to use a CD. They might not be able to read the words. The child could pace through reading the words, and the parent could hear it, and they could both be very involved. And it was a successful program. Okay. And we just felt, and this is very, and of course you can't do that. It's hard to find materials in all the languages represented at the schools. But this was one way we engage parents.
Okay. Parents, is that how to do it? I'd like to hear from a parent. Raise your hand. Yes, right here.
As a parent and with a Hispanic background and a community activist in the Hispanic community, I see that the key ingredient that we are not talking here is the cross-cultural skills. With so many cultures in this city, county, or state, most of us all together need to have cross-cultural skills, because we think that one size fits all doesn't work. Because if we go culture by culture to understand why they do this or why they have different ways of understanding of practices of cultural values, and if we focus or we take the time to understand each culture, one culture at a time, we're going to serve better the parents and the kids, and we're going to bring the community together.
Okay.
I think something else that I would like the audience to keep in mind is just because you never see a parent does not mean that parent is not engaged. I use my own husband for an example. I could not do the work I do with a nonprofit. I could not do the work that I do with other parents or even with my children without his support. He works 12-hour shifts, but his support is just as, if not more valuable to the schools as mine, because he makes sure that both of my girls are fed. He makes sure that they are both transported to their schools. And if there is an issue that comes up, he will take that time off of his job. But typically, he's in a situation to where he doesn't have that accessibility. And in this day and time, we have a lot of parents that work second shift, work third shift jobs, so you won't see them, but just the fact that they're there, you have to look at what are they doing at home to make sure that there are less distractions for their children to be at school on time and learn.
Is there anyone who thinks that it's not about bringing the parents to school all the time? Yes, you're at Cole, right?
I think the first one is communication. And a lot of times we say, oh, I sent a flyer home. Why didn't parents show up? Or why don't they know about what's going on? Well, how often do we go through all of our junk mail and see what every single flyer says? And so I think communicating in many different ways, call-outs, bulletin boards, flyers, more call-outs, getting the kids excited so then they can tell their parents, word of mouth, engaging parent leaders at a school. I think also, as far as on the school end, we can identify what are the specific skills that students really need, and how do we empower parents to work on that key skill with their child. So what are the very specific instructions? What are the materials that we can send home to help parents help their children in that way?
You're doing all of these outreach efforts. What do you want from the parents?
We want them to ask when they have questions, which means that we've created that trust and a welcoming environment. We want them to practice whatever that skill is, that their child has. And we also want them to be in the know.
What does parent engagement look like? Does it have to be FaceTime in the school? You've raised your hand several times. I'm going to ask you that.
I am a parent as well as a teacher. Okay. And just because the parent is there in the school, it does not mean they really understand, they're fully engaged. One thing that we need to make sure is that we have transparency. As many of you know or do not know, the stakes are getting higher for our students. As of next year, the PARC will come out, which will replace TCAP. No more multiple choice, which means we have to prepare our students for this test, or we're going to end up having more failing schools according to the standardized test. So as far as parent engagement, we need to reach out to those parents and help them understand how do we work together to prepare them to be successful.
Yes, sir.
Well, PARC is a new assessment test. It's a new standardized test that's coming. We're doing some of the pre-tests now this spring, but it actually goes into effect in the spring of 2015. And so we're going to be held accountable for what our kids score on those tests. And we all need to be concerned, because it seems like every time public schools begin to be successful on tests, then we need to go out and find a harder one. And that's what's happened. Now, I realize that the Gateway was a basic level test. It needed to be upgraded. The EOC, if you've looked at that, is a difficult test. And we're seeing students are progressing now in metro schools and are making gains. So let's go find a harder one. So now we have the PARC. I would invite parents, community members, business people to all go in, PARCC, look it up. They will give you sample questions. And I dare say that very few of us that are out of school will be successful, because the expectations on these tests and the level of math that I'm looking at, because on previous tests, like, we gave kids calculators to use. Now the state's going to dictate when a student gets to use a calculator. Everything's going to be done online. Well, we're having to all of a sudden upgrade all of our technology to try to get a computer in every kid's hands. There's a lot of things that are going to come into play that I hope that we're all taking into consideration when we start saying, oh, wait a minute, those test scores were terrible. Well, let's realize what we're expecting kids to do. And let's also realize that every kid in the country are taking these tests. We're not, when we compare ourselves to Switzerland and Finland and the different countries, Japan and all those, and look at their scores, look at the difference in public schools there compared to what we do here in America. In the United States, every child has the opportunity for an education. When you get out of the United States, it's not like that. It's if you can provide the opportunity. Exactly. So, we're always comparing, but not truly comparing apples to apples. We're comparing apples to whatever else somebody else is selling. So,
and your concern with PARC is that it
the
is
level
much
of difficulty,
more rigorous.
Much more rigorous. I think the expectations are very high. I would venture to say that a lot of college students would have difficulty on the math, because I've looked at it and tried to do some of it. And I'm by no means a math scholar, but there's going to be struggles. And it's just a different type of test. Things that we have not expected kids to do. There's a lot more writing involved. Whereas they used to bubble A, B, C, or D, now you have to have a written response. We're getting ready to do a writing assessment that's scaring me to death right now. But just the fact that we've got to figure out how to make it fit in the school day. I mean, let alone the actual academic rigor it's going to be asking for. So there's a lot of things going on with the assessments, the direction that we're headed. You're going to have to give us time to adjust to it as well, just like everything else that we do. And the part about parents and being involved, a parent does not have to walk through your school doors to be involved with their kids. That's not what it takes. It's obvious to us as administrators or as teachers or people involved with the school what parents are involved with their children. Those are usually the children that you're seeing success and you're seeing improvement with. And we deal on a regular basis with the students that aren't necessarily getting that, and we're always trying to find new ways to provide that for them. So, it's not about how many times did I see Johnny's mother in school. Oh, hey, he's got to be a great student. That's not the issue. The issue is how successful is Johnny being, and what can we do to help him get there?
Okay, good point. Parents, any parents want to comment on that? Your parent?
Parents
district-wide are concerned about the park. We are concerned for two reasons. One, our students, that grade affects their score on that test affects their overall grade. It affects their ability to apply for an academic magnet because the test scores are kind of a qualifier for that. And last but not least, it affects our teachers directly. It affects how their evaluations go because our kids' scores are put into their team scores, and if our kids don't do well, that brings their score down. So we have serious concerns about Park and having it roll out in the manner that it's been put forth.
Anyone else want to comment on Park that's a parent? Are you a parent? Yes, let's hear from you.
I have 3 children in metro schools, successful, fabulous neighborhood zone schools. But I'm really concerned about Park because I think it is, not only is it a written exam, which is fabulous to find out what they know, but it's on a computer. And so the skills, it's just different sets of skills that they're not really prepared for as quickly as it's happening. And the idea of the quick rollout is, I think, just absolutely going to be detrimental to the scores. And perception is reality, unfortunately. And I think there is finally, as was mentioned, Metro is getting a better perception and keeping our quality schools, quality kids here. But when these Park assessments come out and the kids don't do well, there's going to all of a sudden be this cry that our schools are failing and they're failing our children, and we have to start all over again.
I'd like to get some opinions about standardized testing in general and whether, the Park we're hearing a lot about, but there has to be some measure. So here's a student. Let's hear from a student about this.
My name is Muna Adan, and I'm a junior at Glencliff High School. I'm in the Ford Academy of Business and Innovation, and I believe that tests shouldn't determine how smart a student is, because some of us, we're not good at taking tests. Tests, they end up making it worse, like for us, because us as students, we see that as like when they say the EOC is coming or something, we're just like, no, we don't want to come to school because, I mean, we hate taking tests. And like some of our teachers, they know us personally, but the people who are going to grade the test, they see the scores and they could be like, that student didn't do so good. They don't know how good of a student we are or how hard we try. Like I don't live with my parents, so I don't have people that I could really look up to or my parents to tell me that, go do this, this, and this. And, sometimes it's hard for me not living with them. So, like, they don't know, like, when we don't do so good on our tests, they don't know that how hard for us when we're at home or what we're going through. They should just, like, make everything a little bit easier on us when we go to school. That's how I feel.
Okay. So how do you reconcile some frustrations around tests and basing so much on test scores with the need to figure out where students are and if they are learning what they need to learn? Yes.
Hi, my name's Lynn Kelly and I teach at Glencliff, and I'm really concerned about the high stakes testing that's done because the stakes have gotten too high and the teacher's been totally discredited. I know what these kids are capable of. I know who's honest. I know who's dishonest. I know who's creative. I know who's intellectually challenged. I know who had breakfast, okay? I know who had to walk to school in the rain, and I have seen kids get really lucky days and get a really high score that places them someplace they have no more business being than the man in the moon. I have also seen students who should have those prize places in the charter school or in the magnet school who came in with no breakfast, a headache, had a fight with mom. Mom's boyfriend said or did something he shouldn't have done. He's got too much power in the family. Anyway, but we're totally discredited. Nobody cares anymore what I think, and I should be the one who's the most accountable about what happens in my classroom every day.
I know we have policymakers in the audience. I'd like to hear from Amy Brogue, one of our school board representatives, about this topic.
Well, I wanted to speak as a parent too, because this has really impacted our family. I think the question on standardized tests is how much do we need and how is the data being used? I think we all agree that we need data to see what's going on in the classrooms, but the number of tests that we're giving right now has really become absurd. My third grader last year had over 20 standardized tests. Teachers in our our school estimate that they spent a month just on the testing. In Chattanooga, they are spending a quarter of the year on testing. Some of that is coming from our district. A lot of it is also coming from the state. It's state mandated, and that's really problematic because what's happening is that we are no longer able, you know, we have to cut out a lot of things in the schools. Like recess at our school has been cut down to 15 minutes for children under fourth grade and under. We put in a teaching garden where the kids could learn how to grow vegetables. The teachers were all committed, and new tests came out. They weren't able to do that. So we're cutting a lot of things out for these tests. And then the other question is, how is this data being used? You know, there's kind of a sense really that it's not necessarily to drive instruction. We have so many tests that we're giving that the teachers don't really even have time to review it. Sometimes they don't know the results of the test, that we're really just sort of using it to hammer teachers, and that's really the wrong intent. So I think those are the questions we need to be asking.
And from a governing perspective, what can you do to reconcile what the state is saying and the federal government is saying about these needs with what you just stated?
Right. Well, so I've asked us as a district to really look at the testing, and several of us on the board, not just me, you know, see how much we are, you know, what we really need, what's really necessary. The other problem that we have, I think, in the state is that we really don't have a collaborative culture between the local school districts and the state. We're getting, this gentleman in front of me talked about top-down mandates. We get a lot of that, and there's really no discussion as to what the kids need and the districts want. And so I think better communication between the state and the local school districts would be really helpful.
Okay, very good. We just have a few more minutes left, so we've talked about a lot of things. I'd just like to hear from some of you what you're optimistic about when it comes to the local schools.
There's so many positives. I am such a promoter of public schools. I am such a promoter of zone schools, and I'm a huge promoter of academies. Within this year, and I'm talking about Glencliff, but I'm talking about all the schools that are associated. There are 12 zone schools that have academies. And I would just, I guess, tell you guys, go on, click on to the website. You'll see the academies. You'll see some of the cool things that are going on. We have students that are seniors that are spending 60 hours in a nursing rehabilitative clinic. They are working with patient care, and at the end, in April, they will take a certified nursing assistant. Some of these folks will be certified nursing assistants before they even get their diploma. Got a lot of students. They can come right here and check everybody's vital signs. They can tell you exactly what you need to cut out of your diet. They can tell you exactly what type of treatment that you need to go to. They can tell you what kind of physicians you need to attend to. Chol right here spent our last school year with Ford Credit, and they spent hours upon hours working on a financial literacy presentation. The community came to Glencliff High School. They taught to them about budgeting. They talked to them about how to buy a car. They talked to them about personal finance. Some of these things that these parents are like, wow, this is so overwhelming. Students like Chol were able to talk to them in their native language. All right, Chol speaks Arabic. We don't have some students right here, but we have a lot of students that speak Spanish. So we got some amazing things going on in Metro Public Schools. I am the biggest supporter of Metro Public Schools, and we've got 3 business partners right here that are just solid. And we really appreciate those folks too. So that's my positive.
And speaking of the business folks, I'd like to hear from one of you. What do you like about what's happening? Go ahead, Rashid.
I have to put the hat as being a parent of 3 kids, one in elementary school, middle school, and high school in Metro MNPS in their zone schools. 5 years back, I thought I was planning we're all going to send them to magnet schools. That's no more the case. As a business partner, I'm just so, excited about these academies of Nashville. I've served on behalf of NES on the Engineering, Manufacturing, and Industrial Technology Partnership Council for the last 5 years. From NES, which we're committed to being a good corporate citizen within our community, we've partnered one-on-one with Maplewood, their Academy of Energy and Power. And we've helped with the curriculum development, NES, and have been involved with externship for the teachers, and it's unbelievable. We've even had co-op students, mock interviews. But I personally believe that every school, neighborhood school, is a good, if not great, opportunity for the parents to consider sending their children. I think we're getting away from that model where we have to, in order for our kids to be at the best and have the best opportunity, they only have to send a magnet. Magnet's a great option. There are many options out there, but I believe firsthand and as a product from the school system here that we do have the best opportunity for our kids.
Okay, well, thank you. And it is important to involve all aspects of the community. I could tell you're going to jump out of your chair if I don't call on you.
When I go out to the schools, the students are excited. And at Cane Ridge, and I'll give a shout out to Ms. Wall, who's also back here, they have started a teen court in their Academy of Law. So they're actually trying juvenile court cases. And one of the students made the comment that had it not been for teen court, they would not have come to school that day. And it's things like that, that working in the juvenile court system for so many years, it is a joy to see the joy in the students. They mediate conflicts in the school. So instead of sending the cases to juvenile court now, they get to do them there. They get to be each other's peers and to decide what they should do on their cases. And it is such a wonderful thing. So as a business partner, I am extremely excited about what's happening. And then I'll say I am also a parent of a 5th grader in the McGavitt cluster. And I'm excited about going to McGavitt. I'm excited about where we are. We're at DuPont Hadley now. We have an excellent communication system. The principal calls me probably too much. And I get a call almost daily about what's going on with the school, what's going on, how the community can work with the school, how the parents can work with the school, and I'm excited. I'm excited that I am in my zone, that my child goes to his zone school, and that we're going to be going to McGavitt, and we're going to be in the, I have chosen for him, he's going to be in the health law. I mean, I don't know what he's going to do, but that's what I've chosen, and so I'm excited about it. I'm very excited about it.
You can learn more about NPT's American Graduate Town Hall by visiting the website at wnpt.org. And we want to hear your thoughts. Email us at tv8@wnpt.org or call our viewer comment line at 615-259-9326. You can also join the conversation at #NPTAmGrad.
American Graduate Community Town Halls are part of American Graduate Let's Make It Happen, a public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.